Hello, BookTube. All right, we're continuing on with January's Q&A here. Flora says, "Hey, Steve, long time no chat. Hope you're doing well. Here are my questions. Number one, what do you think of Stephen Fry's writing, fiction and nonfiction? I generally like it. I like his nonfiction a lot better than his fiction, naturally. But still, I think I could defend that. I think I could make a case for the nonfiction being better. And number two, what was it like writing about politics when you were younger? Was it different from how politics is written about today? I've actually done both. For the audience overseas, I wrote about American politics a few times, more than a few times in the last 10 years. And it is different because all sorts of disparities have grown greater. As the system ages, the disparities grow greater in all kinds of ways. So you have, in America, for instance, there used to be two relatively coeval political philosophies, and both had their pluses and minuses, both had their sane adherents. That the disparity between those two has grown greater and greater and greater because one has adapted better to changing demographics than the other. And the other hasn't wanted to, and has rather instead wanted to rig the game, increase tensions, create animosity. And that, unless a large and long sustained effort is made to plow under those disparities, they will continue to get greater. And because of that, writing about politics now, as opposed to 50 years ago, has a much greater us versus them mentality. There's a lot less willingness for your reader, on your reader's part, to even wait to see if you're making any good points. Instead, it's I have my antenna out. I am examining the first sentence of this 8,000 word piece to find out whether or not you're in my tribe. If you're not in my tribe, then I not only don't want to read your piece, but I also disagree with you, and I want you dead, and I want your family dead, starting with the children while you watch. That was absent, just absent from U.S. politics before. It makes it harder to do without just writing to an echo chamber, which is why most people just do that. They just stay writing to an echo chamber. Let's see here. William Fett says, "What do you think of John Jakes and his Kent Family Chronicles North and South trilogy?" I love them. I think they're terrific. They're bad. Let's keep that in mind. They're bad. They're really bad. but they're still very enjoyable, very entertaining. Mitchell Axler says, "What do you think of the Penguin Monarch series?" Generally like it, and more specifically Jeremy Black's volume on George III. Well, it's good, but it underscores, perhaps more than most of the other volumes in that series, the problem with a series like the Penguin Monarch series. For those you don't know, it's just meant to be on a shelf together. It's a series of like 100-page Oxford very short introductions to the various British monarchs. And if you do that, I mean, that's not the first time that project's been done. We've seen it. We've seen earlier versions of that project on this channel. You're going to sacrifice depth, you're going to sacrifice research, you're going to sacrifice any kind of nuance or complexity in order to highlight the impressions this figure made on the author. So, this series highlights that weakness. That is a weakness. Jeremy Black is a very talented writer, a very good historian, but what can he do? On a subject like George III, for Pete's sakes, ruled forever, ruled for like 60 years, whose rule encompassed an enormous amount of history, including the loss of the United States. How can you do that in that space? The answer is you can't, and he knows that. And most of the Penguin Monarchs writers know that, so they do kind of a quippy trot on their subject. And as that, the series is really good, including this one. But you're sacrificing a lot to get that. Kim Barrett says, "I suggest a fortnightly Q&A." Oh my. Not including dogs, what animal species have you felt the most kinship with? Pigs. Pigs are wonderful people. Absolutely wonderful. Jonathan Noel says, "Hello, Steve. Your thoughts on James Salas?" I like him. I like him. I think he's overrated by his Dude Bro fans, but I like him. His novel Drive and its 2011 adaptation starring Ryan Gosling. Well, the 2011 adaptation, Drive, is a fairly simple, almost boring novel, and the movie version is an anthem to incel dude bros. That's all it was ever meant to be. That's all that it's for. If Ryan Gosling isn't careful, that's all the work he's ever going to get. He should very much work against that. But in this sense, it was the same as Joker. it was designed to do things that the book wasn't really designed to do. It was co-opted to be a kind of dude bro Fight Club-esque thing. And as a result, it was giving to its audience a lot of larger themes or messages or hidden meanings that are the opposite of what's in the book. So I thought the movie was well done, but dangerous, tricky. Thomas R.P. says, "Hi, Steve. Could you show off those John Carter of Mars paperbacks over your right shoulder?" That's these great things. If I recall correctly, these were, these are from, Mark Richardson would know off the top of his head. These are from the 80s, I believe. This has a bookmark in it, so I might not be able to tell. Can you do it? It's hard to do when you don't have a sense of touch. I think this reprint series was from the 80s. Well, anyway, I believe this is the last time that these were done. There's been a mass market reprint series of John Carter of Mars, of these John Carter of Mars novels. I don't think they've happened since, and I don't think they ever will again. You'll get elaborate trade paperbacks. You got a lot of elaborate illustrated volumes because of the movie that flopped. But you won't get. This will be the last time that this happens. That you get just mass market paperbacks. These great mass market paperbacks, and that's a shame because these are tremendously enjoyable. They're Stuvia, made of Mars. Look at that. That is incredible. Something dropped. What dropped? A bookmark to the Bruce Willis movie Armageddon. Read it and weep. I naturally kept this. This was part of a press kit that came out with the movie. I naturally kept a bunch of these because I love that. It's a movie about a giant asteroid coming to destroy the Earth, and the bookmark is read it and weep. I thought that was great. Let's see here. Any plans on picking up Marsathon again? We only did a Princess of Mars. No plans on my part. Justin Raymond says, "Hi, Steve. I was wondering what you thought of Tolstoy's critical analysis of the great man theory at the end of War and Peace. Do you think it deserved its place at the very end of an already large book? Do you agree with his critique? I believe there's some relevance today in the way Trump and his followers feed off each other. I don't think it should. I agree with it. The basics of it are impossible not to agree with. That's Tolstoy's whole stock in trade, is to make it a platitudinous obviousness into some sort of deep philosophical inquiry. But no, it should definitely not be there. It's this huge thing at the end of War and Peace. It shouldn't be there. If he'd been amenable, if anyone had been able to get to him and tell him that, they should have had that removed. Also, if you have time, based on Berlin's fun essay, The Hedgehog and the Fox, we'll have to agree to disagree on fun. Would you consider yourself more of a hedgehog or a fox? Or, like Tolstoy, a fox that longs to be a hedgehog? In the terminology of that ridiculously oversighted essay, I would be a fox, I believe. Lisa Garrity says, "Spying on the South is the last book I will be able to read by Tony Horowitz." Yes. Yes. The author died unexpectedly, right when he was on tour for that book. Another great writer gone too soon. Yes, indeed, gone too soon. I had an interview all signed up, all ready to go with him. It was going to be so much fun to do for the Monsters Vineyard Gazette, for the Vineyard Literary Festival, and all the plans were up, all the flybills were printed, his face was on everything, and then he died, and none of it happened. Do you have any suggestions for similar authors? I have no idea what you mean by similar. He's too multitudinous an author for me to immediately know what you mean by similar. Feel free to email me. Curio says, "Hey Steve, I know you're a fan of comic books. I wanted to know your opinion on Japanese manga. I haven't read enough of it to have an informed opinion. I read Crying Freeman a million years ago, 40 years ago. I loved it. And I read Death Note, all of that, and loved it. But I haven't read, I've had so much else, so many other manga titles recommended to me that I haven't read, that I don't know enough about it. I've liked the two things that I've read in depth. Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff says, Herman Melville or Mark Twain? Oh no, how am I supposed to make a decision like that? Mark Twain wrote more good books. More of his books are worth reading. But Melville wrote Moby Dick. which is, you might say, yes, he did. So what's your point? But that's kind of a overturning the board type statement. Melville wrote Moby Dick. So, Twain never wrote anything like Moby Dick, not even close. There are parts of the Gilded Age, but that come a little bit close. But they're the parts he didn't write. So I don't know that I can make a choice. It would depend on what you mean. There you go. That's a nice Weasley way. It depends on what you mean. View from the bar. Oh, he's a known troublemaker. Hey, Steve, I've been thinking a lot lately about two seemingly simple things that just get increasingly vague to me. Evil and genius. Not the intersection of those things, but just how they manifest. Are they everyday things? Are Hitler and the cat-killing neighbor boy is one word, because a view from the bar really needs to get Cormac McCarthy out of his system. A full detox, I believe, is what it's called. Neighbor boy is not one word. Neighbor boy is two words. And Mark Zuckerberg and Bernie Madoff cut from the same cloth. And what of genius? Can we say Buster Keaton and Einstein and General Patton are huddled under a similar umbrella? Okay, well, Buster Keaton and Einstein I get. I don't know why Patton would be listed as a genius. Why is Patton listed as a genius? Because with a fully gassed up and mechanized tank division, he was able to plow through villages full of abandoned and gasoline deprived tank divisions. I could do that. You could do that. It's not genius because he says it is. Okay, but, one of you can riff on those for me. You want me to riff really at the hookah bar, right? They're probably too big to riff on. I mean, evil is just that you unplug from empathy, from you become a sociopath. That's when you go from being just a bad person to being evil, is when you're not connected to your species anymore. And it's incredibly easy to do. A normal person can make that disconnect almost at will, because humans are prone that way. Humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens, is a very, very damaged species. Damage was done to its genome, through its body chemistry, as a direct result of the hyper-fast way that it increased its cerebrum size. So it's a purely evolutionary thing. I'm not saying that humanity is cursed by the gods. I'm saying that one of the byproducts, like any other evolutionary byproduct, if some animal very rapidly evolves enormous claws because its environment there's a niche that it can exploit. Well, okay then, in very little time, evolutionarily speaking, it has enormous claws, and one of the side effects is it doesn't have manipulable hands anymore. So, there's a price to pay for a lot of really rapid, highly specialized evolutionary advancement, and humanity suffered that price. Humanity jumped in very little time, evolutionarily speaking, very little time, from being just an ordinary communicating ape to having a brain that's more complex than a computer. And the evolutionary cost here, the thing like the giant claws, the problem, the thing isn't visible. It's that a whole bunch of body chemistries were warped in the process. So humans are prone to genocide. They're prone to psychopathy. As opposed to it being an aberrance, in a general breeding population, it actually tends to be fairly common and restrained by social factors, which is not true with any other animal species that's on Earth that we know of, and probably any other animal species that's ever lived. Because if you're in a natural state, if you're not manipulating your environment with agriculture and livestock and whatnot, if you're just an animal in the natural environment, and you have that genetic defect where you have some advancement has tipped your body chemistry, your genetic makeup towards psychopathy, you're not going to last. It's an extreme deficit. That was about evil. That's all that we characterize, I think, that humans characterize evil as someone who has made that switch, who has turned that off and embraced psychopathy, embraced sociopathy. They are the ones who are evil because they're not recallable anymore. And genius, I am of the opinion, I know this is probably puts me in a minority, but I'm of the opinion that genius is 90% happenstance. It's 90% having the right tools around you. and only 10% talent. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that, not that the talent is an illusion, but that the talent is freed to realize itself because all of the tools are in place. You can look no further than the stereotypical best genius, which is Einstein or Shakespeare. When his talent came to its fullest potential, he also had an acting troupe that was really good and that was well known and sort of moved into sole possession of the field, where it was all of a sudden all of the tools were perfect, where he didn't need any more to piecemeal some sort of work in order to please anyone. He could sort of do what he wanted with the perfect tools at the perfect time, right at the maturation of his talent. And it's been my experience that tends to be what genius is. We tend to look at genius and say, oh, wow, what an amazing thing. But usually it's because all the elements are in the right place. And if they're not, then we don't say genius. In other words, I don't believe that the whole 100% of the thing we typically think of as genius is just in someone. I think genius, as the thing that we describe as genius, is in large part rising to an occasion, which is in a way a very optimistic way of looking at things, because it means that anyone can do genius work if everything aligns just right. You still have to have talent, but I don't think you have to have quite as much talent as people say. Like, for instance, Einstein would be a really good example, where everything sort of lines up together. There will still be key insights that someone has that no one else has. But if you look, for instance, there's a famous black and white photo of Einstein with 2 rows of his colleagues. Marie Curie is there, Max Planck is there, Niels Bohr is there, just 24 people. Something like, I forget, like a dozen Nobel Prizes or more than that. And most of the people in that picture had all of the raw material of genius that Einstein did. And then there's all the rest of it. Did they have the right institutional backing? Did they have the right free time? Did they have the right appurtenances to allow that one jump of insight to happen? Rather than that he's a towering genius and they're somehow 70% genius or something like that. But anyway, I don't know if that counts as riffing. But we can talk all about it in a podcast, can't we? Luke and Jennifer Higgins say, a couple of questions to answer. Number 1, we enjoy annotated books, but always struggle in regards to what is the best way to read and appreciate them. Yes. I find that if I veer off and read an annotation while reading the actual text, the narrative drive just withers. Is it better to go back and read the annotations at the end of the chapter, or read the book minus annotations first? Any tips would be appreciated. Yeah, I love annotated editions, but they are antithetical to reading. Oddly enough, ironically enough, they're antithetical to reading. If you have an annotated edition of the text and you don't have anything else, this is one of those cases where having 2 different versions of the same book actually would help. If you have an annotated edition of the text, especially if it's a text that is eminently readable on its own, there are annotated editions of Frankenstein. You don't need annotations to read Frankenstein. There are annotated editions of Dracula. I have 2 of them in this room. You don't need annotations to read Dracula, or Pride and Prejudice, or Little Women. But the way that's worked for me is, if you're reading your annotated edition, let's say that's the edition that you have, and in the text, just ignore the annotations on the other side of the page. If you're reading the text and you come across something that you actually feel you need an annotation for, there's some reference that you don't get, look for that, but not the rest of it. I've had people even have success in that, to the point of having a piece of paper that they just place over the annotations so that they don't even have the visual distraction. If you have 2 different editions of the text, then my strong recommendation would be read the text without the annotations first. Get to know the text first. Then the annotations become pure fun. Question number 2. Amelia would like to know if you and Frida like horses or unicorns. Any good horse stories you can share? Frida has never met a horse. I'm not looking forward to the day. She's never met a horse. She's met alpacas. But she's and a rooster and cats. and multiple dogs, but she's never met a horse. Occasionally when we have been out in, there's a park here that is patrolled by horses. Occasionally she has come across horse poop in a great big pile that's almost as big as she is. She knows from that, it got her maniacally scrutinous attention. She knew that it was poop from an animal she'd never seen before, but she's never seen the animal. I myself have seen them many times. I've ridden horses many times. I was, in my youth, quite skilled at it, at taking fences and whatnot, dressage and all that. And always had a somewhat tense relationship around dogs. And I used to say that there was a woman who was my instructress for a long time ago. And horses would be fractious and jumpy around me. And I finally asked her, what on earth is wrong? Why is this? I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything to be as accommodating to this horse as possible. Why are they being so jumpy? And she smiled at me. She had a wonderfully dry sense of humor. She smiled at me and said, it might have something to do with all these dogs barking around the horse's ankles. I hadn't even thought of that. Of course, dogs, my boys and all the dogs in the stable were all going nuts the whole time. I hadn't even thought of that. But one time it was long after I was a pupil, I was riding a horse with a group of friends. We were out riding, and the horse that I was on, this enormous thing. He was enormous. And he was being fractious. There were no dogs around, and I know I smell like dog, but it was bothering me. And I was trying to talk with him. I can't talk with horses. So I was trying to talk to him, trying to say, what on earth do you want? I'm not just gonna get off, but there's nothing here that should be bothering you. I'm not doing anything wrong. And then I had a moment where I sort of realized, I know. We're at the rim of this enormous canyon, and it's all green grass, and the sky is endlessly blue overhead, and there's a light breeze, and it's a beautiful day. I know what you want. I suddenly knew what the horse wanted. He wanted to run his head off. He wanted to run his head off. So I let him. I let him run his head off. And it was an amazing experience. Absolutely the most amazing experience I've ever had on horseback, where I felt like I was him, where I felt like we were one animal, and I was moving faster than any human can move, and the earth was rolling by underneath us, and there was this tremendous sense of power and control. It was just amazing. Just amazing. Jim Chaplin says, Donoghue or Childe Harold's Pilgrimage? You don't really have to pick. I just like hearing you talk about Byron. For me, I love them both, but it would be Donoghue because it's funnier, and also because it's full of in-jokes. Childe Harold's Pilgrimage is also full of in-jokes, but it's a lot drippier. It's a lot more of Sorrows of Young Werther. Whereas with Donoghue, there's a lot of humor, and it pays off the more you know about Byron's time and the people he's poking fun at and whatnot. It's a lot like Macflecknoe in that regard, a poem that most people aren't going to know. But Macflecknoe, there's hardly a word in it that isn't an in-joke. And the more you know, the more enjoyable it is. And the less you know, the less enjoyable it is. So probably I would pick Donoghue. DDB says, I was the one who made the suggestion about monthly Q&As. If I ask a question, does that mean I have a conflict of interest? Everybody liked your suggestion. My question, can you recommend a foreign policy or history nonfiction book that deals with the rise of Japan prior to World War II and leading up to Pearl Harbor? I'm thinking a book that deals with the period 1868 into 1941. I do own At Dawn We Slept, just haven't read it yet. I'm guessing this deals with a shorter time span. Well, At Dawn We Slept does look to the past a bit. It's a terrific book. You should read it. But the one that I would recommend is Emperor of Japan by the great Donald Keene. Big, thick thing, a bit difficult to find used, if how seldom it's appeared at the Brattle is any indication, but well worth it. Oh my. And it deals with very much the period that you're talking about. I'm not sure the dates are exactly the same, 1868 to 1941, but really close. And it deals with it wonderfully. So I would strongly recommend that. James Holder says, my question, did you ever get a copy of Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson? No, I didn't. Not a physical copy, not the big brick physical copy. I never did. The months and months and months ago, the publicist swore up and down to me, you're on the list, you will definitely be getting one. And I never did. And I'm not going to chase after a publisher, so I didn't. I have it. I have an ebook of it, but I don't have the printed book. After all the trouble that I went to get the printed books of the first three, I don't have a printed book of the fourth one. Let's see here. That's not a code speak for one of you to send me a printed copy of the fourth book. Okay? All right? Yes, I would love it, but you shouldn't send me a book. Julie Alvar says, I discovered your channel in mid-2020. Welcome aboard. We have a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to a whole year with you in 2021. Oh, thank you. Me too. Question. I recently acquired Captains and Kings by Taylor Caldwell. Just wondered what you thought of her writing. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Even the books that she co-wrote, not so much the new agey stuff about Atlantis, but she co-wrote a book called I, Judas with Jess Stern, and it's amazing. It's truly amazing. One of the best novelizations of the New Testament that I've ever read, and I've read a huge number of them. It's really, really well done. And all the rest of her books are too. I naturally have a sweet spot for her much more historical. I like the Captains of the Kings. If I ever found a paperback of it again, she'll never be reprinted. But if I ever found a paperback of Captains of the Kings again, I would definitely get it and reread it. But her historical things, Great Lion of God, and especially Dear and Glorious Physician about St. Luke. She's well worth your time. Really good stuff. Babette Marjan says, what are some of your favorite romances or couples? Historical or fictional or both? Oh my, no idea. I don't think in that way. I would think of all the stuff that's coming to mind are all the predictable ones. I really don't think in that way. I'd have to think about it. Maybe do a Valentine's Day starter kit. Rainbow Notebook says, I have a specific question, but maybe it will be interesting for others as well. Usually not. If you have a specific recommendation that you're looking for, it's better to email me. But let's see what we have here. Do you have any recommendations for fiction that is a more recent release that is about art during the Renaissance set in Florence? We'll see what I mean. In answer to this particular question, no, I don't. But that is extremely specific. The chances that even two other people are going to be interested in that kind of parameters, they're pretty low. So, but I wouldn't be able to think. I don't think I can think of anything off the top of my head anyway. So, in this case, it wouldn't do any good to email me. Jack Ivoniak says, do you like banana Laffy Taffy? No, I don't. No, I don't like playing with my food. And I don't like food that fits in between categories, okay? I either eat it or I drink it, okay? So I'm not really interested in anything that sort of blurs the boundaries there. I'm not going to chew bubble gum. So the point is I'm supposed to chew it but not eat it. And same thing with slurping soup. I'm going to eat it or I'm going to drink it. I'm not going to play with it. Humans playing with their food, I swear. And did you ever play Pokemon? And if so, do you have a favorite Pokemon? I've never played Pokemon, no. That's reading time. Jordan Rafferty says, hello, Steve. I'm a new subscriber. Welcome. You have a huge backlog to catch up on. Get cracking. My question is, how do you manage to read 1,000 books last year? Over 1,000 books last year. It's an insane number of books. It is. The actual number is insane. That's why I didn't mention it on this channel, because even the people who are well disposed, we're all friends here on this channel. If you're new to the channel, you might not know that. We're all friends here. This is not a parasocial relationship. This is just a friendship. As you will notice from all the crap that people give me. And even there are plenty of people on this channel who just know that my reading number at the end of the year is just freakish, and they just say, the reaction is exactly what it should be, which is he's not lording it over anybody. It's just he's freakish in that way. And we can make use of that. He's perfectly willing to help to share what he gets from all that, but that's not everybody, and it doesn't have to be everybody. I love that. Like a lot of people before me, I absolutely love the amount of spot-on acceptance that I have gotten from our little corner of BookTube. But the answer to your question is fairly simple as to how I did it. Number one, it's all I do. It's the only thing I do. I don't take classes. I don't take care of a household. I don't go to a job. I don't do any. I'm not even wearing pants. I don't do anything other than that and take care of my little schnauzer. That's all. I'm pointing because she was, for a long time during this Q&A, laying on the bed with her chin on the windowsill, looking out at the world that she wants to conquer. But then she got a little tired, so now she's asleep on the bed. I don't know if I can move this to show you. Oh, I don't think I can. I don't think you'll be able to see her anyway. Well, one way or another. Number one, it's all I do. And I'm telling you, if it was all you did, and it was all you'd done for a long time, you also would read fast enough to get your numbers way up. Number two is I don't get distracted. when I'm doing that all day long, every day, I'm not distracted. I don't have my notifications on any technology, and neither should you. Your technology should never beep at you. Never. I'm not incurably drawn to doom scrolling. It's not like, well, I've set my phone down 20 minutes ago, but now I'm unbearably drawn to check on it again. I'm not anything like that. I concentrate completely on what I'm doing. And number three, I don't sub-vocalize. I'm not saying the words that I'm reading with my eyes out loud in my head. I'm not doing that. I don't know if I can make that clear, but you are almost certainly doing that when you read. Most people do that when they read, and it's incredibly slowing. It slows you down to the speed at which you can read out loud, which is not necessary. It is not necessary. There's plenty of reading that you do in your own life where you don't sub-vocalize. And if you look back on that reading yourself, you will see how much faster it is. Think, for instance, of if you're a college student and you've spent 2 years telling me, I just can't break the habit. I sub-vocalize with everything I read. And then you get the fat letter in the mail from your number one pick college. And it's not thin, so it's not a rejection. It's the number one pick. And it's big. It's a package to introduce you. The stereotypical fat letter that means you've been accepted. When you open up that package, you read that letter without sub-vocalizing. I guarantee you don't sub-vocalize. And you read it 5 times as fast. So that I don't do anything else. I concentrate completely on what I'm doing, and I don't sub-vocalize. And that, if you did those things, your own numbers would skyrocket. Mary Tumblety, we're at 30 minutes already. Here, let's stop this and we'll come right back.